America literally holds more wealth than any nation in the history of the world. I mean, trillions of dollars are just sitting there in banks, stock markets, and real estate. And yet tonight, tens of millions of Americans are going to lie awake doing financial math that they just can't make work. And it's not because they're lazy, it's not because they aren't trying hard enough. Something else is happening here. Something fundamentally structural that most of us are absolutely never taught in school. So welcome to this explainer, where we're going to break down the actual, real-world mechanics of money in America.
It really all comes down to a massive paradox, right? Why are so many incredibly hardworking people still totally broke? Why does doing everything right still leave so many folks struggling just to build any kind of lasting wealth? Well, by the end of this explainer, you are going to understand exactly why that old just work harder advice is actually mathematically flawed. We'll uncover the invisible psychological traps that catch even six-figure earners, and we'll look at the quiet, everyday habits that truly separate those who build wealth from those who stay stuck. Okay, let's dive into this.
To really understand the problem, we first kind of have to look at the sheer scale of it. The country isn't faking its wealth. Those trillions of dollars are completely real. But, when we hear that a country is wealthy, we tend to picture that wealth spread out somewhat evenly, like a rising tide lifting all boats. But think of it this way. Imagine you've got 10 people standing in a room. One person has $91, the other 9 people have to share $9 between them. The average wealth in that room is $10 per person, which is technically true, sure, but it is completely meaningless for 9 out of the 10 people standing there. The wealth exists, for sure. It's just incredibly concentrated at the very top. Chapter 1. The Trillion-Dollar Illusion. This brings us directly to the macro-level trap of how money actually moves through our economy. There is a massive, fundamental difference between trading hours for wages and owning compounding assets. Most of the country's wealth doesn't actually move through paychecks at all. It moves through ownership. We're talking about things like stocks, real estate, and businesses. These are assets that just compound quietly in the background while you sleep. Meanwhile, the rest of the economy runs on wages, and here's the kicker. Wages were never mathematically designed to compound. So if you only trade your hours for wages and never own appreciating assets, the wealth gap is going to widen automatically over generations, simply because ownership compounds and renting or wage earning doesn't. Chapter 2, The Moving Finish Line. It's not just the big macroeconomic system that keeps people broke. We also set some pretty intense psychological traps for ourselves. Let's talk about a guy named Daniel to look at a concept called lifestyle inflation. Daniel lands his first job, making $42,000 a year, and, he manages to get by. 3 years later, he gets a huge promotion, jumping up to $68,000. His income just grew by over 60%. That's huge, but his savings completely flatlined. Why? Well, because he upgraded his apartment, bought a much nicer car, and started eating out a lot more. He felt he earned it, right? His spending rose at the exact same speed as his new income. Now, the absolutely crucial thing to understand here is that this isn't some terrible character flaw on Daniel's part. It's actually a highly predictable psychological pattern called hedonic adaptation. As humans, we adjust to new comforts astonishingly fast. What starts out feeling like a super fun luxury on payday quickly turns into a strict baseline requirement just a few weeks later. Suddenly, that fancy dinner literally feels like a biological necessity. The psychological finish line of, I'll finally feel totally secure when I earn X amount, just keeps sliding forward every single time you reach it. Chapter 3, The Debt Machine. Now we have to add an aggressive background mechanism to the mix, one that catches people even when they're trying to be responsible. Let this number really sink in for a second. Let's say you have a $5,000 emergency. Maybe it's a blown transmission or an unexpected medical bill. You put it on a credit card with an interest rate above 20%. If you're making only the minimum payments, you aren't just paying $5,000. Over the years it takes to actually pay it off, you could easily end up paying over $9,400. You are essentially buying that same emergency twice and giving the bank a massive tip for the privilege. This is exactly how a single unlucky event turns into a years-long debt spiral. So the practical takeaway here isn't to be absolutely terrified of all credit, but to separate your debt into 2 very distinct categories. You have debt that builds, like a reasonable mortgage or education loans that clearly increase your earning power. In those cases, you're buying an asset. Then you have debt that drains. This is consumer debt used to float depreciating comforts. If you're paying 20% interest on a dinner you ate 3 years ago, that is an aggressive wealth drain. Chapter 4. The Invisible Tax.
Zooming back out to the big picture for a second, there is another macroeconomic force silently eroding your purchasing power every single day.
We're talking about inflation, of course. And this right here is exactly why the old just work harder advice is so incredibly misleading today. You can take on a second job, you can hustle and work way more hours, but if your wages are growing slower than the soaring costs of the big three, which are housing, healthcare, and education, you are still going to lose ground. The gap between your paycheck and the true cost of living simply widens underneath you. Working harder definitely increases your income, yes, but it doesn't automatically outpace inflation. Chapter 5. The Scarcity Mindset Trap. This is where behavioral science shows us how these systemic traps literally alter the physical way our brains function.
Think about your brain's bandwidth for a moment. Researchers studying scarcity have found that severe financial stress causes our cognitive bandwidths to narrow sharply. Your brain becomes entirely consumed by the immediate emergencies, making rent, fixing the car, paying an overdue utility bill, and that leaves just a tiny, microscopic sliver of mental energy for long-term future planning. It creates this cruel irony where the people who would benefit the absolute most from long-term financial planning have the least mental bandwidth available to do it, simply because pure survival takes up all the space.
Chapter 6. The Quiet Math. Okay, let's pivot and look at the exact mathematical mechanism that separates a lifelong struggle from quiet, durable wealth. The math behind this is absolutely phenomenal. Let's look at Maria and James. Maria starts investing just $200 a month at age 25. James waits until he's 35 and then tries to catch up by investing double, $400 a month. Assuming historical average market returns, Maria actually ends up with significantly more money at retirement, despite investing way less of her own money overall. Why? Because her money had 10 extra years to compound. Time in the market always beats trying to time the market. Early money isn't just money, it's money multiplied by time. Chapter 7, Survivorship Bias. But wait, what about that guy you saw on social media who day traded his way to a mega mansion? We really have to address the toxic advice out there.
We are incredibly prone to something called survivorship bias. We'll watch a documentary about a self-made entrepreneur who dropped out of school, took massive reckless risks, and hit the absolute jackpot. But we only hear that story precisely because it worked. What we never see are the thousands of unlit, silent figures behind them who took the exact same extreme risks and lost absolutely everything. Actually, scratch that. Most durable wealth in America is built incredibly boringly. Steady saving, long-term investing, and avoiding catastrophic debt. Do not let the loud exceptions trick you into making reckless bets.
Chapter 8. Building Your Financial Cushion. We've talked a lot about a flawed system. Let's pivot and see how this builds into a highly actionable defense strategy for you. Here are 4 steps you can control right now to stack the advantages back in your favor. Number 1, automate your minimum savings. Pay yourself first before the money's even visible in your checking account, bypassing that scarcity mindset entirely. Number 2, define your raise percentages in advance. Decide today that if you get a raise, 50% of it goes straight to savings, which totally crushes lifestyle inflation. Number 3, build a $1,000 emergency cushion to turn a potential debt trap into just a minor inconvenience. And number 4, invest early. Start small today and let compounding do the heavy lifting for you. It ultimately comes down to this core truth. Doing everything exactly right doesn't guarantee you won't get hit by a medical emergency or a crazy housing market. Personal habits and systemic conditions are both true at the exact same time. But understanding these mechanics doesn't mean pretending the system is perfectly fair. It means refusing to be powerless inside it. It means grabbing whatever leverage you possibly can to protect yourself and build your own financial cushion. Which leaves us with one final thought to close out our explainer today. If 2 people earn the exact same salary over their entire careers, but one becomes financially secure and the other struggles for life, what do you think actually makes the difference? Is it pure discipline? Is it timing? Better information? Or just luck? Think about the mechanics we've uncovered today, reflect on your own financial journey, and see where you can start stacking the odds back in your favor.